Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Screeny. Rick & Co. see dozens of items come through the shop on a daily basis. Some are worth peanuts, but others are worth the kind of money that we can only dream of. Every now and then, a seller brings in an item used in a popular movie, reminding us just how valuable props can be. Join us as we take a look at 10 most valuable movie props on Pawn Stars. Before we begin, do us a favor by clicking that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a video on your favorite TV shows. Number 10. May the Force be with you. When it comes to movies, the Star Wars franchise is on a whole other level. Fans and collectors go wild for anything related to the movies, especially the original. Rick and Chum made a special visit to view one guy's collection, which knocked their socks off. A resin blaster, parts of C-3PO, and a tentacle puppet were among the haul. Rick could see the dollar signs floating before his eyes. The seller asked for $80,000, but Rick wasn't about to part with that sort of cash before getting someone to value it. When it was all deemed real, it was time to get down to negotiating. Rick offered up $50,000, but that wasn't gonna happen. Unfortunately, the guys couldn't come to a deal that the seller was happy with, as Rick wanted to make sure he could make a profit. It might not have sold, but it was still an incredible viewing. You don't get to see stuff like that every day. Well, unless you're George Lucas. Number 9. Pure imagination. The original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie is just as beloved today as it was when it was released in 1971. Starring Gene Wilder, it was an extravagant screen masterpiece that utilized hundreds of unique props. Rick went to LA to view some awesome pieces, including the original hat, the golden egg, a golden ticket, Wonka bars, and most importantly, the everlasting gobstopper. Rick was in love with the entire collection, but mainly wanted the gobstopper. As a whole, the collection was worth $750,000. The seller was only willing to part with the gobstopper for $100,000, but of course, Rick wanted more bang for his buck and asked for a free Wonka bar on top. They shook hands on $105,000, and the big man walked away with some of the rarest movie props in the world. That's a lot of money, but look at what Rick got in return. It was well worth it. Number 8. Party on. Cast your minds back to the early 90s when the world was obsessed with the lovable dopes Wayne and Garth. Wayne's World launched Michael Myers' career, helping him to become a Hollywood mainstay. The movie is still frequently referenced today, so it's not surprising that movie props can fetch a pretty penny. Rick visited Orlando to meet a seller who has the Wayne's World 1976 AMC Pacer. Bill and his wife bought the car from a museum, but he wasn't a fan of the movie himself. He was more intending to try and get some cash for it, and as he had the paperwork to authenticate it, Rick was interested in striking a deal. Bill hopes to get $15,000 for the car, but Rick wasn't sure about the amount of work that needed to be put in. The guys eventually shook hands on $9,500. Was it worth that much? Probably not, considering it was in such a rough state, but it was an awesome buy nonetheless. Number 7. Holy dollar signs, Batman! There have been more Batman movies than you can shake a stick at, so there are a few props flying around, pardon the pun. One gentleman went into the shop hoping to sell his collectibles from Batman Forever. Just to remind you, that's the one from the 90s starring Jim Carrey as the Riddler and Val Kilmer as the Bat. The seller wanted to get rid of a Batarang and a riddle that Carrey gave Kilmer on screen. Both items were one of a kind, and the seller had hoped to get around $8,000 for the pair. There's no denying that they're cool, but Corey wasn't too sure if he could make money on them or not. He was only willing to part with just over $2,000, so the guys didn't make a deal. Still, that's a decent amount for what's essentially some paper and metal. Let's hope that they sold for what they were really worth elsewhere. Number 6. Waxing lyrical. Corey was tickled when one guy came into the shop with a talking candle from the kids show HR Pufnstuf. The strange object was featured on the series in the 70s and 80s and caught the attention of Joel at an auction. He was hoping to sell it to the pawn shop for $5,500, which he believed was a fair price. Corey and Chum liked the item, but it was time for Rob to come in and take a look at it before the discussed value. Rob estimated the price at over $5,000, much to the delight of the seller. Corey went in with an offer of $2,500, but Joel managed to bump that up to $4,000. Considering that these guys really don't like to go much higher than their original offer, that was an impressive sale. Joel's lucky that he walked away with that amount. Let's hope it survived to see a new buyer, as Chum seemed to like playing with it a little too much. Number 5. Okay, Doc. There are fewer movies more iconic than Back to the Future 2, starring Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. One eager collector brought in a very special item from the movie, the Sports Almanac. Not only was it used in the film, but it was later signed by the Doc, Biff, and the guy who wrote it. Bob wanted to walk away with $7,500, but Rick wasn't sure about the authenticity of the item. He called in one of the prop makers that worked on the movie to assess it. You can't get better than that. The expert told Rick that 24 of them were made, and this one was 100% genuine. Surprisingly, the value of the item was decreased by the signatures on the front, according to the prop maker, who said the collectors usually vied for pristine items. Bob's disappointment was palpable when the item was valued at $2,200. But let's look at the facts here. It's just a piece of paper. Literally a piece of paper that was used on screen. That's it. It's not a gold nugget. Number 4. Child's Play. The original Child's Play movie sent shivers down the spine of audiences as it featured everyone's favorite murderous doll, Chucky. There have been numerous remakes and sequels since its first outing, each one just as creepy as the last. Matt brought in an original Good Guys doll from the film, hoping to get some money to put towards college tuition for a friend. Corey and Chum were intrigued by the item that was still boxed and untouched. But what was it worth? Matt also has the all-important certificate to prove that it was actually shown on screen in the first 2 movies, but he wanted $8,000 for his efforts. The customary expert valued it at $5,000, which was a bit of a kick in the teeth for the seller. Corey came in low with $1,000, but the seller was certain he could get more elsewhere. The lowest he was prepared to go was $6,000, so he grabbed the doll and shuffled out the store. Number 3. I Am Your Father. Okay, so this collection isn't made up of props, but it is Star Wars memorabilia, so it's worth mentioning. One guy brought his collection of figurines into the store, hoping to fetch in the region of $5,000 for the item. Wow. That's a lot for a bunch of molded plastic, right? The 7 figures were incredibly rare, OG versions that were passed down to the seller from his mother and father. Corey and Chum knew they were worth something, but didn't expect to be asked $11,000 for it. Clearly, the seller was playing hardball and managed to walk away with $7,000, despite previously admitting to producers that he would sell for a lot less. More props to him. See what we did there? Don't act like you're not laughing. Princess Leia, Darth Vader, and the other characters would have made the shop a tidy profit, although perhaps not quite as much as they could have. Number 2. Monster Money. Original movie props are great, but sometimes replicas can still make bank. Corey had the pleasure of looking over a life-size replica of Gilman from the movie Creature from the Black Lagoon. It was definitely an impressive item, but seriously, who would want that in their house? Gary purchased the creature at an auction, which was also signed by the actor who played the monster. The seller had a nifty little bonus piece, a Super 8 short version of the movie complete with 3D glasses. Corey had to admit that it was an iconic buy, but only wanted to pay $1,600. They eventually negotiated up to $1,900 and shook hands. Was Gary sad to say goodbye to his giant friend's monster? A little bit, but he was happy to say hello to the extra cash. I mean, who wouldn't want that hideous thing out of their living room and into someone else's unfortunate hands? A must-have for horror movie lovers? Maybe. The rest of us sane people like to invest in a nice lamp instead. Number 1. Make me an offer. Honestly, this one doesn't really have that much monetary value, but it was still pretty cool, even if Rick didn't think so. One lady brought in a jewelry box used on screen in the first Godfather movie starring Marlon Brando. She was hoping to score $1,000 for it, but Rick didn't think it was worth anything. He didn't even make her an offer, basically shattering her dreams of thinking she would ever get any money for it at all. Ouch! Needless to say, the woman walked out of the shop with the box and a bit of a damaged ego. She later sold the piece to an avid collector for $5,000. Better luck next time, Rick. Thank you very much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more videos on your favorite TV shows and tap one of the 2 videos on screen for another amazing video.